Well, salute to Breakfast Club. I think that's easy. Salute to, I don't even say salute to Weezy and Mandii. Definitely a couple of sisters that are super influential in the podcast space. Even though some of their materials are kind of contrary to the be warned to be filled culture around here, but we're not here to criticize them. We're here to deep dive on this topic, which admittedly is kind of an Aggie. We like to try to have at least some higher level of honest, interesting conversations, but we'll roll around in the mud for every now and then. The internet mud, I'll say. So, like I said, salute to Weezy and Mandii. They were on the Breakfast Club recently, and they were talking about all things modern day relationship and relationship dynamic wise, and also they were discussing a lot of things surrounding the Diddy trial, and they bumped into an interesting conversation or topic of discussion of you attracting what you deserve. With the quote even by Mandii, you are in the relationship that you deserve. Pardon me. Let's hear what sister has to say and see if you guys agree.
I think and this is going to sound bad, I do think everyone is with who they deserve.
What do you mean?
If you're with someone who isn't that great to you, it's because you don't believe you deserve better.
Ooh.
And so
Mandii.
And I've been talking to this a lot with so I had this recent conversation. I went to Malta and I'm sitting around a group of women and we're talking about the Diddy trial. And what happens is these women start sharing all of these abusive relationships that they were in. And they talk about how they didn't feel safe even to share with the men in their lives because the men in their lives were like, well, if he touch you, if he do this, I'm going to jail because I'm going to come. And so I shared this story online and it was so sad how many men were like, yeah, but then we step in and they stay. So then what? And I'm just like, whoa. Basically even saying how do you know you stayed too long? Everyone in certain relationships, I feel like they deserve it because it's like, if you don't want better for yourself,
Pause it.
No one can.
I almost forgot this is the Breakfast Club. At the end of the day, gotta make sure we got that copyright. So, as I mentioned, they're kind of breaking down this discussion of people being in situations that they deserve. And, before I give my full take or hear y'all full take as it pertains to this type of dynamic, I will say I am on record with some, a similar notion of not just in relationships, but a lot of things in life. People do typically get what they deserve. More so you reap what you sow type of thing. But I think to some extent, I don't know, I'm interested to know what you guys' full thoughts on it. But to some extent, I think we all generally subscribe to some level of your actions or how you conduct your life will result in what happens to you. Is that safe to say?
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. Keep playing.
No one can lead you out of it. You could take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it. And so I do think that if you're in a bad relationship or not, you don't feel like you deserve more. You're in a relationship you deserve. And so literally in the book, I talk about being like, oh, girl, you ain't have no self-worth for yourself. Oh, you was desperate. Oh, you were insecure. And I think it takes a lot of time for women to say those words about themselves. And so until you're able to do that, the person you're with is probably more of a reflection of who you are.
We could do it for our friends. Your homegirl's in a bad relationship. Why are you accepting that? Meanwhile, we 7 checks deep with no reply. For some reason, we can help everybody but ourselves. And for me, I've always wanted love in a relationship that was true. So what was happening was in my 20s, I was kind of just figuring it out. Oh, well, this is a good guy. I gotta see. He's got a great job. Oh, he's handsome, or he's this, or my mom likes him. I'd hold on to this thing that would make everything okay. It's like when you don't want to leave a job, you find something about this job that's decent, even though
you're gonna pay. Bills gonna keep coming.
Right. And I think that was what made my favorite chapter of mine. It fluctuates, but when I read the love chapter back, the biggest thing about finding love for me today is
it's clip as long as I remember. So yeah, they're basically just kind of getting into. It seems like they both are consistent in this view of, especially as it pertains to relationships, your general current mental and headspace is going to be reflective of the type of partner you bump into. Which again kind of meshes with the train of thought of you get what you deserve. But seems like even some people in the comments are already ready to kind of either disagree or they don't like the messengers. One of the two. It's Instagram, so I can't even tell how much of the clip is left. But I guess just play a little bit more of it. I don't want to watch the whole entire interview. If you're interested, go watch Salted Breakfast Club. Go watch the full interview if you're interested to hear more. But play a little bit more of this.
Well, it wasn't no bullshit healed. I didn't go on a solo vacation and find myself. Like, it really was. I made space for him in my life. I accepted flaws about myself that I fixed. I created the life that I wanted to have with a partner. I also saw a lot of love in other people. And so the problem sometimes with us is like, we're a product of what we're surrounded by. Mm-hmm. Like, you're going to compare your ain't shit nigga to your homegirl. Oh, well, he got 4 months. My man don't do that. And you start comparing. And it's the thief of joy, because you'll literally be happier if you release yourself from that man.
Fair enough. You know what sucks, before we get into it? A lot of these conversations, this is why I even kind of avoid some of the conversation on this platform. A lot of these conversations, while they have, I like to assume with people, relatively like purer intentions of like they're just kind of getting their thoughts out, getting what's on their heart, getting on their chest out, and kind of delving into some of the complexities of like some of these aspects of like relationships. I can just, when I hear some of these things, I just know for a fact they're feeding into like the cultural wars between men and women. when we have some discussions of like how sometimes you need to like heal yourself and get your ain't shit n-word, like that doesn't feed well into like creating a society or a community where we're more enthralled to be with one another. But that's a whole other thing.
I don't necessarily get that from this. But
I'm just telling you.
An offhand comment. But yeah, like you're right. They just make offhand comments like this.
Yeah, I'm just telling you what I'm not saying the entire conversation.
I got what you're saying. Yeah,
it just does.
It does feed into the general conversation. Yeah, I got what you're saying.
Anyway, so yeah, that's the discussion that they were having in general. And again, I think while we all subscribe to this line of thought in some levels, I'm interested to know specifically or in particularly as it pertains to the relationships that people fall into or end up in. Do you think that is reflective of you are what you attract, or you get what you deserve? And especially in the context of like people that are in relationships that are definitely looking more negative than positive. You think they're getting what they deserve? We'll start with you, Ace. What do you think?
The initial statement of you are in the relationship you deserve, I think I had an initial problem with that, but the explanation helped to clear it up to where I don't necessarily have much of a problem with it anymore. But it's like that statement is different from you don't believe that you deserve better. Like I don't think those are equivalent, because the first one feels almost like too dismissive, and there's no like encouragement or anything in it. It's just like you're in a relationship you deserve it, and that's it. Like, so somebody that's in an abusive relationship, well, they deserve that. I don't think you can say that for necessarily anybody that's in an abusive relationship, that they deserve to be abused. But at the same time, you can certainly say that, as an outsider who is seeing that abuse and trying to help the person, and they're not seeing it for themselves, or they're not, believing in their own worth, or whatever issues that are, causing them to stay in that relationship. I certainly think it's a valid thing to say to them that you don't believe you deserve better, and that's why you either keep getting into relationships like this, or you continue to stay in this relationship more so as a like hopefully as a wake up call to them, or something that, if not immediately, something that they can eventually gets through to them. So yeah, I overall I agree with the sentiment of the conversation. It's just that one statement of you're in the relationship that you deserve. Like everybody's in the relationship that they deserve. I think it's just too dismissive, and not like, I don't know, not helpful in any way, and not true in every way either. I also like the cultural point about or being a product of what you see as well, and like comparing to others. I thought that was a good point too. So, but yeah, that's my general thoughts.
Yeah, I picked up on that thing too, at part two. Although it's interesting because I think even though oftentimes comparison does lead you down to a unproductive path, especially when you're like coveting or having this weird like justification for why things are acceptable, I will say I do think a benchmark for what a lot of people's ideal or healthy relationship is probably is like, yeah, hopefully your parents, but if not, typically your grandparents. So I do think one is almost unavoidable, and two, it can almost be beneficial because, I mean, I think a lot of us would like relationships similar to like our grandparents or some old couple in our lives. And so
I
it
mean,
might.
some people don't even have that. Like, I mean, on one side we had a good example, on one side we didn't. So I'm
I'm not
still
talking about.
speaking personally.
Yeah. I'm not talking about like all of us in particular. I'm just saying like while in general, I think you should never like look at your. Although I mean, I don't want to get parasocial or whatever they call however they call it, but I don't know. I mean, obviously we don't know the in and outs of one another, but I would like to think that, especially like I'm taking some people that are married now. Maybe I'll go to you next, Wes. But like I would like to think like if I can have a healthy relationship, and especially from the perspective of somebody that or people that really had to go through a good amount of hoops to make things work and to continue to make things work, I would like if my relationship could look in some form or fashion like my communities. I don't think that's a wholly negative thing, but I guess it would be. I guess it would be a start. I guess it would be negative if like I start looking at like, dang, why don't my significant other do what the rest of the significant other is doing? I guess that's where it kind of gets negative. Anyway,
Or your grandparents, you could say the same thing too. So the comparison could be good and bad in any way you look at it. But what was I gonna say about the grandparents thing? Lost my train of thought. So I'm sorry. You could go to somebody else.
my apologies.
No, it's not. It's not you.
Yeah, there's definitely in the midst of the conversation, there are definitely a lot of extra points that come out. But fair enough. Yeah, I'm interested to hear your thoughts, Wes. What do you think of? I guess do you subscribe to the saying, the notion that people are in the relationships that they deserve?
I don't know. The first time I read it, I thought I agreed, and then I thought I didn't agree. But either way, um, it seems kind of clickbaity the way that it's phrased, and it seems like she latched onto a concept and kind of tried to unfold it in a way that captivates the people who are listening.
That's
Also
what good
seems a little,
podcasters do. Put a little sauce on it.
yeah, but it also seems a little bit fake deep. But either way, I think it's just a question of language. You are in the relationship that you feel you deserve, or the relationship that you deserve based on your self-esteem. And I get that. I get that concept, and it's valid, except for the fact that if you were to, let's say, just see the headline or not understand what she was talking about, like the abusive relationships, like you could be um you could, yeah, it could seem dismissive, or it could lead you to think, oh, well, if I'm in this relationship, I mean, depending on how much stock you put in people like this, you'd be like, oh, I guess if I'm in this relationship, that this is all I can get, this is the best I can do, and you stay with an abusive person or whatever, which would be a negative thing. Um, but also, if you do, even if you do understand a little bit more, there's also the idea of you being deceived doesn't necessarily come into the equation. Is like there are people who straight up deceive the person that they want to be with up until a certain point. And after that point, they take the mask off and they're whoever they really are. And at that point, you didn't necessarily deserve to be in the situation you're in. You got deceived, like, and you can't say, "Oh, I should have known." Or sometimes, all right. I mean, you can't really blame yourself all that much for
I will say
thinking that this person will land.
that's not necessarily wholly common for
True, but it does happen.
for someone to like be really good at be a really good deceiver. I'll say that. Like obviously, we've all heard of the situation where like you're talking to a guy for a while, and then one day he just randomly, oh yeah, I gotta go see my 5 kids. And, like,
yeah, exactly. Months. Hiding children. That's one of the examples I was thinking of. Like exactly, like things like this.
But I'm just saying, like that's not necessarily a norm to where like the other person isn't like intensely like, or not even intentionally, they're not a really good deceiver. Like if you pay attention, and you'll be able to spot these things.
I suppose, but it's I should just say it's less on the person and how they view themselves than it might seem based on this conversation. But yeah, I don't really think I have too much more to say on that. Yeah, I think the comparison comments that y'all made were good, and I pretty much agree. It can be good to have a baseline, but it can also be bad to think that everything that in your what you got going on has to be like somebody else, or to think that I'm okay because somebody else is worse. Like it's all relative, but you got to be careful too.
Yeah. Then what about yourself, Ghost? Do you have any hot takes regarding this? Do you generally subscribe to people end up with the people that they deserve?
No hot takes. I'm pretty much more or less in line with what you guys already reiterated. The statement that people end up with who they deserve, I 100% don't agree with that just as a blanket statement, but I think the way they qualified it and the way they explained it made a lot of sense. It's just, you really can't, like what's brought up, like abusive relationships, that's one, you can't say anyone deserves that. I think if there's a pattern of you getting with a certain type of person that has negative traits that you either ignore or you keep seeing in them, like there's a common thread where if it's something where you're looking for something subconsciously where you don't feel you deserve someone better, or you're just refusing to see a pattern in the type of people you're pursuing, I think there's definitely a lot of truth to that. And instead of saying that you deserve that type of person, it's more so like you're kind of looking for them in a way, and that's where it becomes like how you get out of that negative mindset. So there's definitely truth to that. But in some cases, it's like you kind of get unlucky. Like you think someone's a good person, you do your vetting process, and
a lot of people don't be doing the strict vetting that they should do.
Yeah, that is another thing. Sometimes people are a little too anxious to get in a relationship, and you'll overlook negative traits that kind of have been there from the beginning, and it just isn't apparent until you're like you're really looking for them. You kind of delude yourself. That's definitely a thing, but in some cases, it's like you're not always going to run into a master manipulator, but like people in general,
unless you run into Drake.
Like people hide stuff about themselves. It's just kind of human nature, is that until you get to really know the person, and it's like they're not even actively trying to hide certain personality that they have, but it's sometimes, again, you just get unlucky. Like someone could just be a bad person. You don't see it until you really get to know them deeply, and it's like it happens. And I'm not going to say that someone deserves to be in that position just because, again, they got unlucky. And there's a line between bad luck and consciously or subconsciously looking out for a certain characteristic or trait, and it becomes a thing with like everyone that you're seeing. That's a different thing than just randomly running into a bad person. It happens, but in general, again, I don't like the clickbait title and all that, but I think the way they explained it was pretty valid.
Yeah, I think we can all pretty easily identify that. You gotta throw out the what I call like the Kanye West line, the Kanye West version of your of what you're trying to iterate. But a lot of times, if you kind of delve deep and listen to their actual breakdown of some of these ideals, it makes a bit more sense. Maybe you might not be fully on board, but like I said, a bit more sense. Yeah, in general, I would say as it pertains to relationships, I think one of the biggest moral stories, you do have to be conscious of what you deem acceptable in your according to your standards or what you particularly find comfortable in life. You have to be mindful of comparisons when you're making comparisons, and you have to be diligent and do a certain level of vetting. So you don't necessarily fall for some of these okey dokes. But yeah, you definitely, because something that comes to my mind is that if you do heavily lean in like all these things are happening because I deserve it, I feel as if there's a world in which that can manifest into like a negative perception of yourself. But maybe I'm kind of digging into that.
No, yeah,
That's too deep.
that's why you needed the nuance. Essentially, it is know that you deserve better, or think differently so that you're in a relationship that you actually want, that's better for you.
Hmm.
As in, as in, change what you deserve, essentially,
Yeah.
by how you think of yourself.
So yeah. While some of it does get a bit repetitive, like we hear these conversations on social media a lot, I think it can be beneficial to continually build one's overarching ideals as it pertains to relationships. It's good to hear different perspectives. Basically, what I'm trying to say. This is why you would stop and listen to stoners like us. But unless there's anything else, we can move on to the next topic.